Alrighty, guys, bring it in. We're gonna set up for a while here. This is gonna be killer. Late night chill. I hope you guys are having a good week. Bring in the Bigfoot. Bring in the monsters. Come on, let's do it. If you're on Patreon and you're joining us, you can come in via the YouTube logo and like come into the chat from there. It'll open up a new window, bring you right in the chat. It is for subscribers and members also only. So, but once you get in the chat, you can post up your questions, and we're talking about anything, including the recent popularity of the Donnie Miller investigation, which is interesting. It's almost like it, got released out finally or something, but it's interesting. A lot of the reactions are expected. You know what I mean? Those kind of reactions. But yeah, that was one intense investigation. That's for sure. I think looking back on it now, it's like you couldn't believe some of the stuff that went on that field investigation in that location. It was interesting. We got hair samples. That was pretty cool. And they matched up pretty much everything that we found everywhere else. When we find these tracks, we track it in, and it was interesting because it was the exact species of tree that we got all the rest of the hair off of in all these other locations. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of important. I think, from a research standpoint, man, when you look for evidence for so long and then you get something like, 7 or 8 different locations where the same type of tree seems to have these things hair on it, it's pretty intense. It's like, where else are these trees are they located? And it's a real specific kind of tree, so it kind of puts the whole thing pretty simple. Yeah, I'm not, something's going on here. I'm trying to see. How do we get this off so we can see? I don't know. I guess we're having trouble with, there we go. Yeah, I can't see it for some reason. Oh, it looks like it's got some subscriber mode on. Let me see if I can get something on this. I don't know. We'll try to re-engage with a different setting. I'm not sure about this chat, to tell you the truth. Interesting. You guys usually don't have this problem coming in, do you? There we go. Okay, we finally got rid of it. All right, so you guys can come in now. We can see what's going on, and we're gonna hang out for a while and take questions about this. You got questions about Bigfoot? You got questions about the Nephilim creatures, because there is a difference, and it's obvious when you view a lot of the stuff that we catch on film. It doesn't fit into the average eyewitness description, and that's been the most startling aspect of all of it. Is when you go in the field, you don't expect this kind of thing. I think everybody's got their kind of pop school education on it. I got mine from TV like everybody else. What's up, John Barfield? How you doing? Southwest Georgia. Nice. That's good. If you guys are interested, you pop into chat, throw up your questions, anything really, because we've got a a tremendous amount of field research experience. My wife and I have engaged in probably well over 600 expeditions or so, man, at this point, and so many movies, documenting that, you know. Um, hey, what's going on, guys? How you doing, bro? Good to see you. Good to see you, bub. What's going on? Oh man, I hope you guys are doing. How's the weather in Southwest Georgia? I know I was kind of concerned this morning about what was going to happen here, but it just went away. That's an interesting little tidbit, Uh, what we find, I'll tell you what we find is areas that are occupied, and they're occupied in real subtle ways. But once you catch on to it, it's more about, can you understand the disillusionment that's been going on, and get out of it to get a grip on reality so you can actually engage with the environment the way you should be. And it's difficult enough to do that, I mean, geez. So yeah, it's taken a long time to get to this point, where we can just, pretty much go, if there's an area that has a history of these guys, when you have multiple eyewitnesses over, good spans of, good lengths of time, like, 2 decades, something like that, you can pretty much count that there's some validity to a few of those accounts in that area. So what we've learned, I think the most important thing is that it's not always a situation about where these creatures are migrating or something. Like a lot of the places we go, they're sedentary in these areas, and we know that now because when we spend 3 to 5 months or 2 to 3 years in a given spot and catch the same ones on film, and we build files on these guys over on Patreon, you can go see all that stuff. Hey, what's this? Oh, we appreciate that contribution. Zip. Nice. 54 zip. Very, very nice. Thank you for the contribution to the study. Melanie and I appreciate every contribution that we get for the study. And it comes out the back end. That's what drives the data that comes from, when we go in the field. And here lately, we've been sticking close to home. We don't have to go too far, man. Realities are what they are. And like I was, mentioning, that the disillusionment that people suffer from about this is, I've been explaining that in videos for a long time. And, now it's just becoming more drastic with everything that, we're seeing, first of all, and then also able to record while we're seeing it. And, so we're here, what's going on, Matthew Breck? What you doing, man? You were like, it's Matt. And I'm like, okay, there's like, I got a few Matts. I got 3 that have previously played my band, right? So I was like, oh no. No, I appreciate it, bro. I appreciate it. It's good to see you, dude. But things are going well, to let you know. It's been a long, hard road coming back from 10 years of field research. And when you really put your effort into it, you get rewarded with the truth, man. That's just what it is. And that's what happened, Okay. So funny. You get rewarded, like it's like kind of the same situation that Donnie Miller, from the All Up in That Man's Face video from the interview. It's the same thing, right? Donnie spent a lot of time out there, and Donnie grew up in rural Florida, man. This is back in the day before they started putting pavement in these places. And so, when Donnie describes a lot of the stuff that's in these other videos, we went over some of the craziest things that I'd ever heard. But when you understand what's really in there and how they act towards us, it starts to make all the sense in the world. It's like I've interviewed so many people who have had these situations before I started having them myself. And you start to build this kind of like idea of what's going on. And interviews are great, but nothing will serve you like the experience. I can assure you. And Donnie spent a lot of time in there, trapping. So you witness somebody doing something that you disagree with once, and they move on, and that's fine. But you disagree with somebody, and they do it 3 or 4 times. On the 5th time, that's how you're going to be acting, because you weren't assertive the first time to explain yourself. You know what I mean? So in the end, boundaries are being crossed because simple communications have been avoided for capitalist reasons and whatever. The reality is like people knew a long time ago that these things were here and neglected to tell anybody about it. It is what it is. You know what I mean? We're in this situation now dealing with it. And Donnie's one of those people who's like learned, I can tell you this about what I know from the brief time that I spent. I spent a few days with Donnie. Donnie appears to be a very God-centered human being. And I mean that in the most sincere way. And I say that because it's in his behavior, not because of the things he says. It's the behavior. It's the self-sacrifice for animals. It's the willingness to continue through many adverse situations and develop a foundation in understanding the spiritual side of living and interacting with reality with like care and concern for others. You know what I mean? And that's what I saw about him. And so when he started to speak about all of the things that he was going through, it was something that I understood was something that was significant to him and that he had gone through. There wasn't a question about any of that stuff. And while the field investigation, I have to take on a completely different kind of whole thing, because when you're talking to Donnie, it's like you get to know somebody pretty quick in situations where they're scared to death. And it's interesting to me that when we got to his property, that's exactly how that man acted. And he was not okay. It was one spot he was okay with being in, and he took, we went to another spot. He took us to another spot, but there's a place where he owns this land and he doesn't want to go in there. And he knows that's where they went after he saw him. And so I was like, you never went in there. What do you mean? It's like, it's only like right over to that like boundary. It's 150 yards or 200 yards, maybe even less than that. But he refused to go over there. And they have a nickname for it. I think it's called Jeff's Corner, I think, or something like that. It's, from his buddy Jeff. And they're good old boys that are, about the land. And when you go there, the first thing you should understand is that these people live in and around this area. So if you're dealing with an expert, Donnie's the expert. What are you going to, you know what I mean? It's like what I can go in and confirm is the same things that I've researched in other areas. But in Donnie's area, Donnie's the expert about what's going on. And so when he's telling me I'm not going in that area, you know what I mean? That's where it's like, all right, well, let's go, So I led him over through there, and that's where we got the hair. If you go back through this, you're going to see, you're going to see the hair samples, the comparisons, how they compare to even dogman samples, because the investigation from Swamp Mysteries and individuals involved with the Troy Landry's family investigation pulled hair samples from their investigations and sent them to me, and they match up perfectly with Donnie Miller samples and my samples. So, it's become obvious through these field investigations and interviewing credible people like Donnie that these situations are happening, not just like with Donnie where they're, creatures are there, but pretty much everywhere, So, you start hearing about where it's more like, where isn't it going on? Where isn't this going on is the question. And, you start to look in Florida, and it goes all the way down to the Keys. And that's the insanity of it, right? You have literally got people down there pulling around in their flats boats in the fog. And there's, hominoids coming out of like mangroves eating oysters in front of them. And they're just like with their fly rod and the guy on the back with a pole, and they're both in shock. It's like 7-foot creature. Some of these creatures down in this area, when you get further south, I think we're pushing into that little bit thinner population because we're running into different types of cover and thinner types of cover. So we're going to see some of those smaller ones down there, and we get the reports that match. Florida's been my focus for a long time. So we have a lot of information. And Crypto Reality Patreon, on the free side, you can join for free, man. We share images, and all the YouTube videos go over there too. And so you can see stuff there, but there's loads of, we have 3 tiers of memberships, man. Support the study. We are doing the work and can prove it. And the reality is our work is built off of solid sciences that were already established and understood. So it's not something that can be questioned unless you want to go against all those academics who already proved it by experimenting. You know what I mean? We're looking at like really simple things that were overlooked by everyone else is what we found. And in the end, people tortured us over it for I don't know how long, but they were all wrong. And that's the fact. And it's going to be very obvious the more people that adopt these self-understandings, right? And they are simple. It's very simple to understand that if you don't understand something, you probably shouldn't engage with it the way you are, attacking people and all that. But that wasn't the case. We still kept working anyway because we knew from the beginning, because that's what we saw happening. It was what I saw. It was my encounter. It just happened to be that he jumped and he was out in the open, and I got to see his achromatic physical makeup. And then when he landed, how he hit near those bushes, and everything started changing. He was going green, and there was all kinds of colors. It was like mother of pearl on his face. And I thought, okay, well, this is going to be easily explained. These guys aren't using chemicals. He's probably all oily. But the green thing threw me off, for a minute until the plants started moving. And it was really, why is the shade actually not dark on his face? It made it glow. Freaked me out, man. I couldn't understand that. And that's when I started really researching plants. And it's interesting because when you shoot plants up close with a really good camera, you will see the little field. There's like a little, I don't know if it's the life force field or whatever it is, but there's a disturbance around every single leaf when you really zoom in. Could be what, I don't know, if it's energy, it's electromagnetic, I don't know. There's a disturbance in every piece of footage. I've examined probably more footage than anybody that doesn't work for NASA. In the end, I'm just telling you, I spent 10 years in a dark room looking at what we were experiencing over and over and over again, and using light to try to get to these things, filtering light. And when we really started, putting all this together, it was something that was so shocking, because what was revealed were simple truths, not some extravagant thing where, somebody was going into space or anything. What it was they were diggers. They dig, man. They are diggers, bro. I'm just telling you, they're digging. And when they come up, because they, I don't honestly believe they could probably handle direct sunlight like that good, to tell you the truth. And I think that's why they choose the diffusion environment and the digging. In addition to the fact that if you know anything about geothermal gardening, you'll understand that when you get 5-6 feet down, most places you're in 50-60 degree temperature ground. It's like permanent AC no matter where you are in the United States. And it only gets colder the further north you go. But down south, there's a significant temperature drop underground. Even though the aquifer is right there, these hilly areas that are around the aquifer, they offer air-conditioned dirt, bro. These guys are sitting in, I'm telling you, the spring is 72 degrees all year long. You ever slept in 72? It's like perfect. It's like, It's not quite the mausoleum thing, but it's like, it's just right, Let's look what's going on in the chat. Let's see. Is anybody getting nuts? Let's not get nuts. Let's stay civil in the chat. Guys, come on, stay civil. But yeah, the thing with the creatures that we discovered is like, the most important thing is the size, right? Like, I'm an eyewitness to something that no one is expecting, unless they knew from some type of a scientific device that was able to see certain things that have been eliminated from public devices, is the way I will say it, right? And so we're running into like a real short list of people that could have known about this and the creature that I've seen. And in the end, it's nothing anybody's expecting. And when it does stand up, and it will, and we've shown it here, we've shown it. The footage is all here. There's a bunch of them, and they're all over the place, all over the place. I am not going to be alone in this madness, I can assure you. And it's 100% happening. And there are many, many other ones, and they are not small. I'm a personal eyewitness, and I had people standing with me who saw the creature that was probably 18 to 20 feet. I think we said it was 18 to 20 feet at the time. A couple years back, was dying of cancer when it happened. But, and I had to make sure I said it. Are you seeing this? He was like, you mean? And he described the individual to a T that I was staring at without me describing it. So I said, yeah. And at that point, it was like we were already kind of moving and leaving the area because we were being pushed and our cameras had already been knocked out. And that's the fact about it, is like there's an issue with studying these creatures, that when you get into the hot zones and you're in there with them and stuff, you will have camera trouble. I don't care who you are, you will. Especially if you are like one of these guys who's like, I'm, spending $8,000 on this, 10 grand, 12 grand on this, 300 grand on this. That stuff's going to get jammed up when you start getting in the areas where you're getting around them. Like when you start tracking and you're in their zone and you're following tree damage that's 30 feet off the ground. And that's what we're going to be seeing, folks. And that's no underestimation. You can go in our films right here on YouTube and see the tree damage trails as we track the creatures and then catch them on film. The hard part is that, what we found is, and I had to go through this, is that I had to go through my understanding about my philosophies on my consciousness and my dependence on the theory of belief and how righteous it makes us feel, when the reality is you don't have a choice in this. This belief thing where it gives you the ability to choose something. Yeah, you don't have that here. Not now, not what I've seen. You don't have a choice. And so in the end, I can speak these ways because of what I've seen. I'm not a fool. Nope. When we did this, we knew that people were going to treat us the way they treated us. We have interviews that have shown all of this. And in the end, no one wanted to listen. But where we are now, yeah, people need to listen. Especially with the ground, the way it's shaking lately and everything. Is it odd that suddenly somebody's like documenting this? I don't know. Let's think. Is there anything historical? I don't know. I guess that depends on which names you've been listening to about history and this and that. Like, what do you think about this? And is this bad to read because it's against our belief system? Or is this bad read? If people are objective, are educated on what's about to happen, period. And on Crypto Reality Patreon, we subscribe to YouTube channels that will show you what's about to happen and have been keeping track for a very long time, just like us. And so you can see that, our astro department, our cosmic radiation department is one channel, because that's all you need. You need Suspicious Observers or Space Weather News. They've changed their name. But Ben will educate you on everything you need to know about what your ass is facing. And that's the truth of it. And so when you really get into like, I want to know where reality is right now, go to Ben's channel, because it's real. Yeah. So let's see what's going on. What we got? We got Dave B. What's up, D? How you doing, John B? Thank you for coming. Matthew, thank you for the contribution once again, my friend. Matthew, thank you for your contributions to the study, period, my friend. Many contributions over the years. Thank you very much, sir. They like dumpsters. Food is good there. For those guys, they love, something. It's funny because I gave a lecture one time and it was almost exclusively because we had tracked creatures to these dumpsters in this one area on this one investigation. And I was giving that out. Like, guy was like, where do I start? And I'm looking on this map because I have a thing where I can read satellite and pick out pretty good spots for researching, and I do episodes. A few times, man, I found spots and then I didn't say nothing. I went and investigated them. Those are my research areas. You know what I mean? Just looking at satellite, because they're just a part of our environment. And what it is disturbing. What we found is really disturbing. Actually, is their physical makeup is such that they can stay out of and off of human vision until the very last second. In most situations in the forest, until the very last second. And when I say the last second, I mean the last second where if he has an idea to approach you for any kind of a, unfavorable reason, you won't notice until it's not possible for you to do anything except gasp. And that's the truth of it. That's what we've uncovered. Our vision is a direct handicap to what we've discovered is a much more powerful and dangerous species than we are on the ground and on foot. Now, the technological advancements that we have, obviously, we're doing things from space that we never did before on the ground. While we're on the ground, we're doing things in space. Like, this is nuts, right? So, and we know where the true American survival spirit has gone because our tax dollars have pushed the Department of Defense to go there. So in the end, and paid for it. And so we have a reliable defense system against these kind of things. I think the real issue is like, getting this to the public. You know what I mean? Because, look at what they're doing. I get concerned more about like things like relying on an electrical grid for electrical cars and electrical products and all those kind of things when solar max is in its peak or approaching, right? And the scientists, even the mainstream scientists, are now starting to cave to what is ultimately bringing planes down, having boats crash into bridges. Over a period of like 5 years, we've seen the results of these solar flares, and it's been very obvious and predictable outcomes. And Ben's been over there nailing it, man, on Space Weather News. And so, I follow that. But what does that have to do with all of us and these creatures? What nobody knows as they're running to higher ground, if something does happen here or trying to get out of there, you have neighbors. Yeah, we took the time to document those guys, and they're not what you're expecting. Just to let you know, it's not the Griswolds coming into town for like some homemade ketchup or anything. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's a bit more serious, and like you should start paying attention to what we're talking about when we're talking about these 3 cone things. This thing with I can't see anything, but somehow I'm the master of the universe is about to be overturned in a most tragic way. If people don't start waking up and really paying attention to this, because we talk about this all the time on Crypto Reality that physics has pretty much confirmed. Like, I don't understand why the Pope and physics aren't in the same room, like partying. You know what I mean? They're both saying the same thing. Nobody wants to speak the same language, though, and just admit it all so everybody can get over it. And then human beings can be at peace finally, knowing that there is a spiritual realm, because both parties, it's like the dumbest shit is what's running things. And you look at it and it's like, can anybody read between the lines here? I can. I'm looking at this like, and then it's like, something's going on too, because something really drastic. Because didn't England just make up with the Pope after 500 years? And we both, I don't know, if you've watched any of these historical films, then you've seen what's gone on with those guys over there. something serious when them guys are making up. I'd be curious to see who's investigating that online, because I know there's something going on behind the scenes there. We got Rome and England back in bed together. Watch out, or publicly at least presenting that. You know what I mean? What's going on? Tons of reports of them here near Lake of the Ozarks last summer and the year before. BB, thanks for the report, man. Ozarks are pretty freaky, man. You know, I've taken reports from people there for a long time, and there's a lot of them. You know, the howlers, dude. They call them the howlers over there. But anyway, look, all of that stuff starts to go on in the sun and the power's going out and all that stuff. Just picture your road. If you happen to be like me and you live near a forest, or like my street's like it's just right down the street. It's the state park. It's like right there, you know. What would your house look like in 3 years if the power went out and the forest wasn't being managed? What would your house look like? The forest is going to start spreading, because that's the way it works. In those movies you see where it looks all creepy and the city's all overgrown, there's like a lion on the third floor barking, you know, doing roaring and this and that, and there's a gorilla over here. That's all like the kind of stuff, you know what I mean? Because we just saw it, right? They abandoned the animals during the pandemic. And how did you have camera? And some people were unfortunate enough to see all this. They saw that. It's just, you know, Hollywood speeds it up a little bit, and the animals are loose and somehow living. You know what I mean? But there are so many realities that nobody wants to look at. So it doesn't surprise me. This one is freaking everybody out. It is what it is, man. We got another question here. What do we got? Do you think they secret some kind of oil helps do this, or just a frequency or something? I'm not sure I'm understanding the question there. Like there's some kind of oil? I mean, some kind of oil or helps them do something, or what? Oh, I see, on the skin. No, you know, I mean, I think we're looking at like a ton of oil for sure, because the hair sample, if you go back on Crypto Reality here, or if you remember, we have dozens of hair videos, because that was our thing, is like we got the tracks, man. So we know they went in the bushes. So when I go through those same bushes that this track is leading into, I'm watching for anything snagged everywhere. You know what I mean? I'm looking for branches bent the wrong way in the direction I'm going, and that went a little to the side, because there's two trails sometimes, and so we get the hair. You know, the thing about it is I think it's more about the intensity and the degree of blindness that human beings suffer from. I think that if you read the numbers, they're shocking. They're flat out shocking. And I was completely taken back by, you know, the fact that, you know, I have eyes like a hawk. Not even close, pal. You know what I mean? I'd be saying that because I'm a sight fisherman, commercial, all kinds of things. And I was, you know, professional commercial guy for a little while, and I did a lot of this stuff where I rely on my eyes to pinpoint what it is I need to get to with my tools, or take out or catch or whatever it is. And what I can tell you is that the effect that we're missing when you see it on the creature, it is just like, it's like Hollywood soups it up in Predator. But if you can imagine that it's very similar, it doesn't look digital, man. That's the misconception. There is very real diffusion, shadows going across his face. Just picture a million shadows, and they're going 50 miles an hour, like the canopy's moving and all this. And he's so white that the register, and the oil on the skin, yes, and then the hair and the shimmer, if you're in the right light, I've seen these things have like a halo on them shining off, like and then you see the hair, but above and past the hair, and you're like looking at this thing. And I've had these encounters where, you know, my footage, that particular one with the halo, I have footage that was electromagnetically damaged and I have the clip, and the memory card can't be used anymore. It's like there's a clip. When you load it, it'll load the memory card and literally show you a thumbnail that's sitting there. And you can't do anything with it. And from these encounters with these guys. And so you're looking at this and you see these colors going across him, but it's really the plants. And that's what's not registering, because you think, is that the shadows? But no, it's all the light we cannot see. The shadow is simply the absence, to human beings, the absence of frequency, which ultimately we detect. One of the ways, right? We can feel it, because sure, if you're sitting in a vibrating chair, you're feeling it, right? That's one way we sense frequency, but we also visually sense the frequency, and we only have 3 cones. So shadows are the absence of light to us. But the reality is other creatures exist on this planet, and some of their eyes, or most of their eyes, can detect the light that we call shadows. And there is light there. It's been changed, the color of it. It's been adopting, the sunlight has been adopting the frequency of what is causing that shadow. And now, without us knowing, it's that color. Because we have 3 cones, it's antagonistic. It eliminates our ability to see that color change. And then it hits the creature, and it's somehow brighter than what you see as shadow, and freaks your mind out because it's moving all over. And I've witnessed this on multiple occasions. At a DNA trap one time, and I have his DNA. He was eating out of the jar, the peanut butter jar, which if you're going to do that, use glass jars and really wrench the lid on. That way the raccoons can't get through. But we had to learn that. Trial and error, man. Like I said, we went into this. My wife was like, when I told her, I was like, it was like our first date or something. I don't know. It was fun. It was like, I thought it was going to be fun. But the reality is she was like, she thought I was nuts. She was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. And I was like, and she said some other really choice things. And it was like, damn, I was like, well, I guess I just blew this. You know what I mean? But I talked her into a hike, man. And she found a track. She was leading and found a track. So when she found a track, then it was old Tom girl came back who used to climb the tree when she was 12. You know what I mean? Yeah. And she was like, this is unreal. Well, I have to see more. And it was like, that's how this began, because I had already been scared off. I was like, she told me, take me on a hike. And I was like, yeah, well, we can go on a hike, but we're not going over there. I'm not going there. I don't want anything to do with that spot. I was like, nope, not from that, And then, of course, we went back there a million times, and many, many people have been there and witnessed the creatures in one way or another, either seeing them or having them jump up and yell at them because their voices are too loud at 2:00 in the morning, arguing over being drunk on expeditions and shit. I mean, ridiculous things. Sasquatch getting involved in drunk researchers. You know what I mean? I wasn't there that night. I didn't get to see that one. But anyway, I just look at it. The whole thing is ridiculous. And so anyway, I look at all of it, and it's like, man, this is all going on. So you guys are going to have to, I know it's like a lot to accept, but you haven't even seen the one I've seen. And that's the one they talk about. When those guys come, those are the ones that I honestly really do believe they were speaking about in the Bible, because I've seen it. When they talk about men's hearts will fail, men's hearts will fail. Yeah, because I was standing there, and to be honest with you, if it wasn't for the fact that the creature showed emotions, visible emotions, in a couple different kinds. First, and this is interesting, it was scared to death, and it was in shock. It went like this, and then it looked down the tree line real quick like this, and then it looked at me, and it was like, and it kind of lowered its head. And I was like, we're going, and we went out of there. But I'd already seen enough, and then we went home, charged the cameras, and I went back the next day and filmed it. It's on here on YouTube, and you can see the giant 16-footer that's like one tree away from him in the next frame. That's what I'm saying. This isn't one of them things where you have to guess. You can see this enormous creature. It's a huge creature. It had like an 8 to 8.5 foot, 9 foot head. BB, thank you. 8.5 to 9 foot head. It's not a joke. That's going to stop people's hearts. You know why? Because the witness isn't being listened to in favor of the lie. And the lie is you see real good. That's the lie. You don't. You don't. And I had to learn that. I'm telling you, and it's humbling, man, because when you realize what's really going on, it's the most humbling. It's scary, man, because you then say, okay, well, the fact is for 10 years, and I can say this honestly now, and it will come to pass that you know this, that I existed alongside these giants by their grace. And that's a fact. I should think those creatures could have had me more time. And my members know that's the case, man. And anybody else that went in the field with us know that's the case. I've had many victims come with us. You know what I mean? That's the truth of it. We're past all that now, though. That's the interesting thing, you know? Let go. It's like, and this is the hard part. To move forward, we have to let go of what was. And it's liberating is what it is, because when we took it on, it was an agreement. And Melanie and I was like, I'm going to do this, but you know what's going to happen. And we knew exactly what was going to happen because we knew we had them. Guys, from square one, we had them. That was it. And so we went and we did this. And then when we hit where we thought we should hit, we backed off and then got drug into it by people with ethics issues, drug back into it. But that's okay, because God saw fit to use that. And you know what I discovered while that was happening? The giants. And I'm talking about the giants, not this other nonsense everybody's calling Bigfoot and doesn't understand. They're not monkeys. Not monkeys. You know what I mean? And there is definitely something else going on here. It's not just the same thing. This is something else. When you see the diversity in subspecies going on, it's disturbing, but it makes perfect sense when man was created in God's image. It's more about, do you understand history or not? And that's what it ultimately comes down to. And so if you're educated, you know exactly what I'm saying. There is a very big difference between the word human and the word man. And trust me, there is gravity in that. And you should look into it. And what I mean by that is it's attached to everything, including your understandings of like ancient history in the Bible. And so we're looking at things that are created in what image? No, they got you thinking you're first somehow, huh? That's where the heart failure thing comes in. You know what I mean? It's too late, you know? Yeah. These are all things that people don't want to talk about, you know? And I know it's uncomfortable because guess what, pal? I just went through it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. My own understandings and the little fragile world that I built around, you know, and having blocks where they needed to be and all that stuff that people do. Yeah, that rug was torn out from under me, so to speak, you know. And you have to go back to square one. And I was physically and mentally disturbed after I saw that creature for a considerable length of time. What do you do with that information? What do you do with that kind of information? You see what I chose to do. And I did that because I felt like if my kids were playing down the street, my friends need to know about that because their kids are playing down the street. And it's just that simple. Now, you can argue and debate anything after that fact, but remember, you'll have to come back to it at some point. And that is definitely the argument for why you go forward with saying something extremely dangerous exists in our forests. Wouldn't you say? Right. But, you know, this is online, so you gotta watch all that. But this is responsible. And I know that in our heart of hearts, this is not what we expected. I got news for you. So you understand, I'm here with that serious intent to let you know these things are happening. And so we took the time to have the courage after all of this, and then charge the cameras up and go back so that we could show you we weren't like what you thought everybody was who was telling you this. And the cameras and the footage and the images and all that stuff is all here. The hair samples, the examinations, and all the attacks. That's all there too. You can see people who don't understand themselves attacking us like we don't, and we're trying to explain it to them. You know what I mean? It's everywhere. Everywhere. There's not much you can do with it. There's not much with it. And people can say anything about arrogance, ego, narcissism, all these things. No, this came down to what I just said. Don't be a goofball. There are children, and it's not a joke. Yes. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? Our families. That's what it's all about. And that's why me and Melanie did this. I don't know why other people have channels, but that's why we did this. We realized what was serious and what was going on. And so go back and watch. If you don't believe it, watch episode 1. You'll see we took it seriously. And our show on YouTube was the first of its kind. In 2015, there were no shows on here like the Bigfoot Researchers Journal. I worked my tail off to make that show popular. It didn't take 2 weeks for the community itself to start shutting it down, because that's how it works. People smother themselves. Yeah. In the end, information was flowing freely, and it's like nobody wanted it, I guess. I don't know what to tell you, man. It's 10 years later, and now it's at that point where the sun's cracking and everything's going crazy, and it's like planes falling out of the sky and earthquakes in the Pacific Rim and this and that. What's going on now? What's next? Oh, I got news for you. It ain't what you're expecting. It's going to be something now. I'm telling you. I try to imagine a couple times like how all this is going on. And I just like look at it really matter of factly. It's like, this is where we live is cause. And in fact, it's like something happens and then we respond. And so just run the numbers and all the little imaginary illustrations and things you can come up with, scenarios you can come up with what we got on film, and having to react to that. And you'll have an idea of where I've been for a while. Trying to figure something out. Like, why does no one care? You know what I mean? Matthew will tell you. This is not where I was going. Dave will tell you. Dave's in here. We used to have members, man. We have members going back a long, long way. Loyal people, man. And we've been loyal to those people. We continue our mission and continue doing what we're doing, Appreciate that, Bruce. No, I look at it like this, guys. Look, if you have questions about it, make sure you're getting them in. Put them in caps. If you put them in caps, it's like real easy for me to recognize them, because I'm going through here and I'm like, I see the word Friedman, and I start thinking about Friedman amps and how good they are. And then I look and it's about the Freeman video, not Friedman, Freeman video, isn't it? Freeman. Yeah. That's a great video. That's the type, like everybody's like, that's Bigfoot. You know what I mean? But that ain't the only one. There's some other stuff out there. If you go back and look at it a long time ago online, you may be able to find it, maybe not. There's some information on A.H. Miller. And it was like this dude who worked for the Department of Agriculture, and he got to examine Sasquatch bodies after the volcanoes, is what this man's journal supposedly claims, and all these things. What's in that journal? It's interesting because that's the type of creature we've been documenting. Something like what's in that Miller document. It has a reptilian primate classification, or a primate reptilian classification. I can't remember which they favored in the explanation, but it's fascinating because we see these creatures that blend in. It's like people have all kinds of explanations through the years for what we were studying, and they were like, oh, are there chromatophores in their skin? And, it was like, no, it's not as complicated as that. It's more about how much light human beings can't see. And one of the ways that, and you can test this yourself, Go outside. Go outside when it's pitch black and there's no moon, and look around for an animal, and their eyes will reflect light back despite the fact that it's pitch black. That's the light that you can't see reflecting back from the back of their lens. And that's proof. But there are humbling experiences in the forest where eye shine comes. And if you're researching, and that's one of the things that's like eye shine. It's like, that's when you start, everybody's hair goes up on the back of their neck, and you know what I mean? Because one of them's approaching you, and you can't get around that. There's huge eyes, and they're reflecting light back, and there's no flashlight on them because we don't allow flashlights on our expeditions. We ended that in, I think, like 2016. So we do it all in the dark with them. And we try to use cameras that don't have tally lamps and don't have the kind of stuff like that. And it's more about being able to trigger all of it to come on at the right moment. Because the moment we were trying to catch it, that was what we were doing. And what we started running into problems with was every damn camera takes almost 30 seconds to turn on, or even longer. And I have these cameras. So you carry it on and you got to tape up the tally lamp. I mean, these are all processes that we had to go through. You have to understand, when they're in there, and this, you've narrowed it down by hiking hundreds of miles over the course of 12 months. And you got, this clan is in there. There's no doubt they're in this at one particular spot. You come up with all kinds of crazy shit to try to get that camera to see what's in there. And that's the thing. They build a wall around themselves. You may not recognize it from the outside, but it's typically a donut shape. And it could be an oval. A lot of times it's oval, but they will move that thing. And there's a pit. There's a pit, an oval-shaped pit, and they leave an oval-shaped pit when they take it and leave. And they do move it. Melanie and I have documented that. It's early on in the Bigfoot Researchers Journal. One of the things we documented was that they would rip date palms, entire date palms, out of the ground, 12 to 15, 18-foot date palms, throw them in this canal, and snatch hogs off the bank. Because that's exactly what we witnessed for 2 weeks straight in the track sign. We have hogs walk down to this bank, and there's palm trees sitting there with the big treetops pushed right up to the bank, so they can come right along the trunk with the tree feathering out in front of them and get right up on the bank, man, and just pull a hog right off the bank into the water and drown them instantly. And we saw the drag marks where you could see a hog was struggling, a big hog was struggling to try not to go. And this thing ripped it and ripped all the weeds and algae and the moss. There was moss all this bank. All the moss was pulled off. We got all that stuff on film, man. We followed those creatures. We were up those creatures' asses for almost 2 years in the JW Corbett area, man. I got footage now that I just put out here. This, where we can't see it, that footage has been out, and I've had that since 2015. Mel and I got there in the afternoon. Originally, I thought it was morning for some reason, but it was the afternoon, and the sun, or no, it was the morning. It was the morning because the sun was in our eyes. In the JW Corbett, the west bank is where the canal is. So here we go, morning shot. And the sun's in our eyes. You can't see the other side of bushes because as soon as you try to raise your eyes, you're right in the sun. And when you're holding the camera and you're looking at the window, which is what I had a Canon XA20. And I have it all adjusted for this, because you can adjust everything in real time. And I know how to operate this camera really, really good. The zoom lens, I'm manual on my cameras, just so you know. Everything is manual with me, zoom and all that stuff. I run the camera. The camera doesn't go on auto and tell me what's going to happen. That's something you can't have. If you don't know your camera, why are you going to do something? You got to learn your camera first. So having that and looking through the window, you cannot see the window. It's so bright. So you're standing there and you're blind and you can't see what you're filming. So you're just doing your best, and you can hear them coming through the palmettos down to the bank. In this scenario where Melanie and I have, like, in that particular time, it had been maybe 40 mornings in a straight period where we were in there doggedly every single morning, man, and running these things. So I'm assuming that the footage probably comes from 2015 during that span, because we actually literally rented a studio apartment at that period of the study right out on the preserve. So we were right out there, and we were there quite a bit in the morning and the late afternoons. You could go there anytime. Really, it was 2 miles from the house. So, but that place, that place is incredible. If you go to JW Corbett Wildlife Management Area, you need to understand something. We personally witnessed and took the report of the missing people that are not listed in news reports from the FWC. It was FWC officers that laid the account out to us while the first man went missing and there was a car fire. So we were wondering what was going on out in the forest because we were in there in our spot researching, and suddenly there's this huge fire way off in the distance. And I mean, it was maybe a mile and a half away, probably, And we were smelling that it was a car. You could smell the rubber, So we made our way out, which took a while. And all of a sudden there was FWC guys speeding everywhere, man. We saw 3 or 4 different FWC trucks flying through there. And one of them was coming down towards us, and we were on bikes, and I pushed the bike over, and Mel was holding it. I went out there and flagged him down. I was like, "What's going on?" The guy's like, "We got a missing person." I go, "What is it?" And he's like, "I don't know, man." He goes, "He went missing from his campsite last night." I don't know. And he's like, "We're trying to find him now, and there's emergency services. All this stuff's going on." So he's like, "I gotta go." So he took off. The next day, a different officer comes down, and the same thing occurs. We come out, and we're literally standing right there at the entrance on Pratt, right there. And this other FWC comes down the road and says, I flag him down. I go, "What's going on? Did you guys ever find a guy?" He goes, "We got 2 now. 2 in 2 days gone missing from their campsites. Did not know each other," is what this man said. "And they can't find them." And to my knowledge, I think I heard they found one of them, but they never said his cause of death. And it wasn't on the news, not the local news, and I couldn't find anything on it online, but I'm an eyewitness to that. That happened, and my wife is too, So it may even be in a movie here or something, you know what I mean? Because we always film everything, and so we might have the guy. I know I used to film out the window, man, and talk to him. I've got FWC on camera, man. You'll see. You go through. They talk to us all the time, and we talk to them, and they're aware of what's going on. They know what's going on. That's one of the reasons I'm pissed right now, because they know what's going on. Now, whether they know all that I know at that level, I doubt it. But they know the basics, that there are these things, there are creatures out there, and they're letting people go out there like there ain't nothing out there. And that's not okay. That is flat out not okay. And so, my whole thinking on the whole thing is that's the stuff that needs to be stopped. This is real simple. It's real. Be careful. It's your prerogative. It's still your planet. What are you going to do? Run? I mean, there's nothing you can do. And so, moving forward, it's really important, man. Keep common sense about this, because in the end, it's like you can see these scenarios that could develop from this. Like, all it takes is a really, really, really bad category 5 to hit this spot. That's it. And I'm talking about a really, really bad category 5. We haven't been hit by that here, in my knowledge, as long as they've been keeping records. Isn't that something? And they're like, weather guys will be like, the shape of Florida kind of spins them off in either direction, because we live right on the point, And so when you look at it, it's not just that, there's so much going on. And I think the plane thing with the solar stuff is really frightening. I don't see myself itching to get on any planes during solar flares. I think that's good advice, guys. Just stay on the ground. You know what I mean? Get a wet blanket and hide. You know what I mean? Like, who knows what's going on? But anyway, if anybody's got any questions, put them in caps. How you doing, James? Thanks for stopping by, man. Chrissy, what's going on? Arthur, how are you, man? East Tennessee. Cherokee National Forest. Yeah, man, that's it. Tree lines, buddy. You know what it is, man? You want to see one of these things, how they really look? I can tell you, man, it's weird. When you go and if you live in one of these places like Arthur, 5065 is describing right here in the chat. I live in the mountains of East Tennessee. First of all, Good move, right? I mean, that's nice. In a rural community outside Cherokee National Forest, dude, right? That's it. I've seen a lot of different beings just sitting along the tree lines. You know something? I can actually understand why, because that place is loaded with this kind of stuff. When you look into a tree line, you know what you're supposed to see. When you look into a tree line and you see a bunch of really strange, blurry green with no like rational shape to it, that's not supposed to be there. I'm just telling you, that's not supposed to be there. The forest looks like the forest, and then there's the forest with them in it and other creatures like them. And that looks completely different. It looks like a clot of color and no definition. And that's called aberration. And you're literally seeing you're viewing it. That's forbidden frequency, man. You can't see through it. It's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. I'm just letting you know. Forbidden frequencies. We talked about it in that little brief video the other day. It's everything. It's like the core understanding for many different things. And I think is, for me, I'm using it everywhere because really, man, it's helped me to improve my faith. You know what I mean? And I think that's really important. And it's something that if you're a mathematician, man, you got to be ultra faithful by now. You know what I mean? These guys are like confirming these realms that are around us. And it's like, oh my God. And, the fact that like in these realms, you get this reality that if something changes, there's some physical factor that we're unaware of that they could all be revealed all at the same time, that they're all around us all at the same. It's like the way they describe things, it's mind blowing, and what's interesting too is how it's actually a real confirmation that, it does matter what you do. It matters what you do. You know what I mean? Because things are seeing you. You don't, and that's the thing. Like, I think where religion kind of pushes this into a question of beliefs and all this, we have to always remember that beliefs are a direct result. The need for that is a requirement of faith, because there's something that is absent in order to have you there. Realities that we've uncovered and that physics uncovers are confirming of those things, and it doesn't require belief. It requires understanding and study. And so when you reach these plateaus in understanding, it's mind-boggling the information that has been available that you were, first of all, unaware of, because literally your understanding is a bubble. The self-understandings that we develop, and it's like a self-contained system as it moves along and advances. And it's interesting, man. I started to learn about becoming an observer of self a while ago. And there's a great value in that. It's a lost art these days, especially in online circles. But when you really understand, what's going on with you, you can truly engage with this environment that you have been removed from. You're detached from the natural world, even if you think you're not. I'm telling you, the trappings of man have caught you if you're unaware of what's going on in those bushes. And when you reground with self and then re-engage with everything, it's refreshing. You know what I mean? It was a necessary aspect of sweeping the dust off of of me from the study. You know what I mean? And it's something that has to happen, I believe, in people's lives more regularly, because ultimately, I think it's one way to put it would be, you're going to be raising your frequency and coming out of that. It's like, rise above it is another way to put it. And, learning from experiences is a part of growing. And, the study has been growing with us as we learn about ourselves through this process. And, we agreed to bring you guys with us from day one. And I think, we did a pretty good job of that. I mean, I understand it got difficult when we were forced off of YouTube at one point because, maybe, less than noble motives for people who want to have channels that maybe are competitive to us. I don't know. I just know we had to take it private to protect the integrity of what we were doing, because it was being damaged here. And We didn't want that. And what we want to do is transmit the information that we're pulling from the field directly to you. And that was always our goal. And so when it became obvious that that side of it was becoming too much of a hassle, we focused on the study. And I'm glad we did that, because we can now offer you data, not opinions or hypothesis. You know, I can offer all that shit, and anybody can. I can do that too. But we have data now, and you can plainly see it. You can see what they look like. You can see that they are changing color somehow when they near a bush. Imagine that. Has anybody ever explained that? You can see these things, and you can see that obviously, since his head is 50 inches, it's not little. And since his head is on the ground, we can safely assume that more investigation is needed about these giant statue heads that are just, you know, the heads all over the world. Geographically, we have these like gods that were worshipped, and their heads are like, their bodies are in the ground. Yeah. We're looking at something that in mythologies has been fully covered in many different ways. Vampiric legends about how they have to sleep in the earth, in the cold earth, and there's something about the earth, and you can see it in the Dracula movies. His head's the only thing sticking out of there. There's always this thing going on. Mythologies have been controlled and contained, but make no mistake, if you go look at that throne the Pope sits on, you're going to see the face of one of our subjects that you can see right here on Crypto Reality in motif, right above that throne. I don't know what that says about that guy. Maybe he's studying them too somehow. I don't know. But there are several different things out there. And if you really want a good place to start, go back and read the Book of Enoch and the Book of Giants and start understanding that the earlier people, so to speak, yeah, they weren't human, bro. Okay? Yeah, that's a good place to start. Because then when you read that book, you're going to, if you've been a fan of the Old Testament, you're going to understand a few things real quick. You know what I mean? And so anyway, I want to thank everybody who took the time to spend Wednesday, December 10th with me here, chattering and let me chatter on. And hopefully I answered a few questions. We like to do this, you know, so maybe this can become a thing too, this late night deal. I like it. I like the late night thing. I work a lot at night, you know. It's good. If I didn't get to your question, that's all right. I ain't going nowhere, you know. We'll come back and we'll get you next time. And if you're interested, join the study, man. Just do it. Even if it's a free thing, just head over there to Patreon, type in Crypto Reality, and you'll see it. The Bigfoot face right at the end of the palmettos. That's one of our guys that we have multiple expeditions documented that individual. That's in the top of it. And the new one here on Crypto Reality YouTube, I just put up, that's new stuff too. But they're in the same forest and in the same tree line. Those two very different creatures that look very different from each other. Crypto Reality Patreon, Crypto Reality YouTube. Same tree line, guys. Very different, like looking subspecies, right? It's amazing. Help us out. Join the study. All the work goes directly to fund Mark Zaskey studying these creatures and continuing to bring answers out of the field by way of visual footage, hair samples, whatever we get our hands on, whatever we can see. Occasionally we do campouts. We've put that off a little bit because of what we saw. And now that it's like basically insane to be in there. So we look at spots like where we were camping as like probably like a no-go kind of thing. But we are thinking about doing some seminars, and certainly online classes and online lectures are available, private and public. We do those from time to time. Look forward to that stuff and seeing you guys in it. Join Patreon, help us out. Continue the mission of spreading the truth. And listen, man, think about this self-examination thing. I'm just telling you, the 3-cone thing. Start there. Hey, look, I'm reading about my own physiology. There's nothing wrong with that. Because there is an awakening, just understanding that you don't see most of what's going on. Because light is made up of frequency. Life is made up of frequency. All of it, man. And if 99.63% of it is unviewable, we got a lot of work to do, right? We need your help. So get over to Patreon. Thanks for contributing tonight. Thanks for coming, guys. We love you.